Same thing with stocks and, to the moon, right? It's a math equation. Do the math.
Within the math equation, how do you handle, and what do you recommend to people? What do you tell yourself guideline wise? Cash flow, what do you got to save for the rainy day, for repairs? So that way, let's say you're cash flowing $500 a month, how much percent wise are you earmarking for this, that, and the third?
So when I talk about cash flow, I say that's all after the fact. So
Okay.
that $100,000 house, right? If I put 5% down, it's 95 grand on the loan. Let's say for round numbers, the monthly payments $800. Let's say 750. So if I say that's going to rent at $1,500 or $1,000, right? That's all good. You have to set aside a certain percentage of the rent for, and you can look at comps in the area, right? I know this neighborhood, 2-bed, 1-bath, rent for X, Y, and Z. Here's 10 different properties that are all rented right now for that rate. So you have to set aside 5% for maintenance. Don't have to. It's a conservative, smart measurement to set that aside for that. 5% maintenance, 5% capital expenditure, so the roof, the water boiler, the heater, all that. Maintenance, capital expenditure, 8 to 10% for maintenance, and then 5% for vacancy. So your tenants move out in May, right? If you can't find somebody till July, that's a month where you're not getting paid, right? So understanding that all those things come into equation. So if it still cash flows after all those numbers are added in, property taxes and insurance, right? 5% down, you're going to have to pay some additional insurance, PMI, primary mortgage insurance, and then check the tax in the area. So understanding that all these things come into play, and then boom, what is the cash flow after all those expenses are taken out? Because people will say, they'll be like, oh, it's at 750, it'll rent for 900. I'm cash flowing $150. What happens when the boiler goes? Because that's all tied in. It's still a part of the investment. If the boiler goes and it costs you $5,000, that's got to come from somewhere. So it's smart to set aside those reserves for that, like you said, rainy day fund. But it all depends on your kind of where you are in your investing journey. People say 8 to 10% is awesome cash on cash return. 10 to 12, is good. And then a home run is 15% plus. So I'll be honest, if I hit 10 singles, I'll be happy, right? I'll still have runners that score. If you hit, because people will be like, oh, I need a home run, it's got to be 15%. It's well, you just missed on 2 doubles. And it's you could have had 3 doors or 4 doors on those doubles. It's just understanding that, it's a math equation, yes, but you got to pull the trigger at some point.
You said a couple of cash on cash return. I've heard some, again, maybe some of our listeners have heard it too. AVR, IR, what are some of these important metrics when they are doing the numbers and playing that math equation that you talked about?
Yeah, and I might not be the most qualified person to talk about this, right, if we're being honest.
Again, and it's not fucking everybody. It ain't financial advice. I'm picking his brain on a topic he's passionate about. So
I keep it simple, and I plug it all into an Excel spreadsheet. So all those things I just mentioned, they're all, are tied into the purchase price. So say the property's $100,000, and, we're still using this one example, and, it doesn't cash flow. Okay, delete 100, type in 94 grand. What's the cash flow? Oh, cash flow is $50. Is that worth my time? Probably not, right? Okay, 90 grand or 88 grand. Well, okay, cash flow is $200 a month after everything's said and done, and it's in a appreciating area. All right, let's talk. Okay, so there's a number that works out there. What is the number, right? And, if you go up to somebody selling a $300,000 house and offer them $150, they're going to be like, fuck you. But, there's a number that works, and you got to have the number that works in your head. So you got to know, is it a buyer's market or seller's market? If, there's 10 offers on a property, you're not getting it for under asking, right? So it's all about, the market and not timing the market, but understanding, what opportunities are there within the market. Because there's a number for every property that works for you for cash flow. Some are harder, yes. And then you might have to add value because then if I add value to the $100,000 house, I put 20 grand into it, maybe it's worth 150. And now instead of renting 1,000, 1,200, maybe now it's renting 1,700. So there's a lot of different options out there. General rule of thumb, 1% rule is something that's very talked about in the real estate community. So you buy a $200,000 property, make sure it rents for $2,000. That's a good metric, right? To see if it'll cash flow. So that's understanding the rents in the area, and you don't have to do it where you live or where you grew up, but understanding that some people live in California or New York and can't afford it, so they just do it in Ohio or Kentucky, where property's a little cheaper, and they have a manager and stuff that they trust. So it's just something that I think that me as a younger strength coach, I wish I knew about 10 years ago. And I'm listening and learning from all these gurus and all these guys. And then there are people in the space that are 22, 23, and they have 20, 30, 50 units, and it's awesome. So I'm excited for, to hopefully potentially help some strength coaches in the community that, may want to help secure their financial future.
Hey, and that's Kier's episode is out right now, so yours will be released afterwards, and obviously it's a topic that strength coaches, like you said, they talk about. So what would you recommend to any of our listeners I guess, what's the baby step? What's like that mini easiest hurdle to barrier to entry? Is it the house hacking idea that you mentioned? Is it Airbnb? Is it wholesaling? Like, what's the best option for somebody to get in the game?
House hacking is definitely the number one strategy for like entrance, because you need somewhere to live. So instead of me putting money into a landlord's pocket, if I have to pay, I'd rather put it into my own pocket, and then get roommates. And especially if you're young, right? It's easy to live with your friends, easy to live with your buddies. When you're older, you might not want to bite the bullet and do that, but you can buy a multi-family, unit, duplex, triplex, quadplex, whatever it may be, and then those tenants pay your mortgage. So there's 1,000 different ways, very easy, actionable steps to get to that, because that 0 to 1 is a lot harder than 1 to 2. So the 0 to 1 steps is join a real estate group in your area, right? Very easy. Go on Facebook groups and just type in real estate, or meetup.com and type in real estate in your area. There's going to be groups, and people are going to be really smart there, and they're going to present, and you'll learn a lot, right? Buy a couple books, read them, non-strength and conditioning books, which is hard for some of us to do, to put down the strength conditioning stuff and pick up like something else. And then what I said real estate meetup, I said pick up a book, and then podcast, right? Everybody's driving to work, everybody's working out at some point, like listen to a podcast. Bigger Pockets, Weekly Juice, those are probably my two go-tos for real estate.
If anybody was like, hey, these weekly meetups, what are some of the things that you did and that you recommended people to make sure that they're people that are, reputable?
Generally speaking, like you can, I don't know, I feel like you could sniff bullshit sometimes. So understanding that, like the ones I've been to, I'm in 4 different real estate groups, I think, and they're all free or like $5 to go.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.